everybody. Welcome to Boss Gals Talking Tea. My name is Yolanda.
And I am Case.
At Boss Gals, our goal is to empower professional women like you to reach new heights of success where we foster a supportive environment that aids in unlocking endless possibilities for professional and leadership development. Today, we have a special guest, fellow Boss Gal and podcaster, Angel. Say hi, Angel.
Hey.
And we'll talk more about Angel's podcast a little bit later in the podcast. So before we dive into the subject, I have a couple of questions I just want to throw out there. And this is really for our audience. Have you ever heard a voice in your head doubting your ability to perform, or I don't know, ever looked around the room and wondered, how did I get here? Not because you aren't smart, but something is telling you that you don't belong. Well, that's imposter syndrome, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And so I want to level set before we get into really get into the topic and define what imposter syndrome is. And this is a quick and dirty description or definition of imposter syndrome. And it is a feeling of inadequacy and self-doubt despite one's achievements and success. And so I actually want to start with our guest, our fellow boss gal, Angel, and ask if you can just share, maybe talk about one or two experiences that you've had dealing with this very subject, imposter syndrome.
Yes, of course. I want to take it back a little bit because I started thinking about this yesterday. And when I first graduated from college with my undergrad degree, I had a job working for a corporation, and I always say I started from the bottom, but I ultimately got promoted, and I got promoted into a manager role within a year of me being in this role. And when I got promoted, I was very confident in the beginning. I was very confident in my interview. I knew my abilities. I knew that I would go in and crush it. But the moment day one got there, I was so nervous and I felt like I couldn't do it. And it was primarily one of the things that was going through my head is like I was managing a group of people that were older than me, who had more experience than me, who had been with the organization a lot longer than me. And they're like, this young girl is coming in who just graduated from college and she's going to think she can tell me what to do. So all of those thoughts started going through my head. None of those things were actually communicated to me at the time. No one had said anything. It seemed like everybody was happy for me in the role that I was in, but it was me who was doubting myself.
So all in your head, right?
All in my head. So that is one of the times that I have experienced imposter syndrome.
Telling yourself those stories, making up stories in your head.
Yeah.
Now, Casey, have you? Now I know the answer to this question, but you know, for the purpose of the folk watching, have you ever experienced imposter syndrome?
Well, first, I want to apologize to Angel on behalf of the coworkers who, when new bosses come in, act like you can't tell me what to do. You younger than me, right? No. So I in that I will say not as far as work or corporate wise. However, I had to dig deep and talk to Yolanda because I have experienced the definition of imposter syndrome in the aspect of motherhood. And now, in the way you did the definition, you said, although you are well equipped, I can tell you I was not equipped. So I'm not sure if I still fall in that category, but from the time my child was in my belly, did not think I could do this. And so, yeah, I had to, and I'm going to tell y'all what helped me. My son was born and had to do a 30-day stint in the NICU. And it was the nurses who had to show me everything. And even when they said he is graduated and ready to come home, my thought was, how is this child going to survive? Because I have no clue what I'm doing. So my imposter syndrome was actually thick for that. Now, corporate wise, no, because I've always, for me, felt like every role that I have is just attack and conquer. That's all. That's just for me. So work-wise, no, but motherhood, absolutely.
And we're going to talk a little bit more about that, because I don't think, based on what I know about Angel and even myself, and I'll share a situation recently, right, where I had those voices in my head. But I think both Angel and I, right, when we are interviewing for the job, we look at the job description, we feel the same thing that you just said, right? Which is like, I know I can crush this, like, but then something happens. And so we'll talk about maybe why that doesn't happen for you. When, those voices and the self-doubt. But recently, a few months ago, I was invited to go to this conference out in Vegas, right? And so, I was invited for a few reasons, but for me, the invitation in my head was only because I had done ABC or XYZ, for somebody, and they were saying thank you, so they invited me to this conference. Now, at the conference, the majority of the people who typically get invited to go to that conference from my job are people who are at a higher level than I am, right? At our job, we do these band things. And so they are higher up the ladder than I am. And so, that voice starts coming in my head, and thinking about, is somebody going to ask me, what's my band, or what you like, all of those things, right? And feeling a bit inadequate in the moment. And and then I had to combat that. I'm not going to talk about how I combated it yet, because we're going to talk about it in a little bit. But it's something that, for those of us who I think experience it, happens more often than we'd like it to happen, right? Hearing those voices. And so, one of the questions that I have for you, and you actually did mention this, Angel, that you experienced it early in your career. And I'm assuming that I know I have continued to experience it. Have you continued to experience it as you were climbing the corporate ladder? Or, yeah.
Yes. Yes. And it actually happens a little bit more often than I would like for it to happen. But because early in my career, I wasn't able to really recognize what it was. I think the term imposter syndrome is more like I don't want to say a trendy term, but it's newer now, And I think when it was happening before, I didn't identify it to be that. Now that I know what it is and I'm able to like really identify it, I'm able to attack it quickly compared to earlier in my career.
Yeah. So let's talk about because Casey, you talked about your mindset when you start a new role. So you have that I'm going to attack this, right? And we do too. But then day one comes, or a situation comes, and we start having those doubts. What is it that causes you not to hear those voices in your head? What do you think that is?
I just think for me, the doubt never comes in my head if I'm actually equipped to do this. I think for me, there are hard moments. There are come home, kind of just slowly put your head on the wall. There are go to bed moments, but it's never a moment of I'm feeling doubtful that I'm not equipped to do this. Primarily for me, and I'll be honest, it's more of a race thing for me. And I don't want to really bring it into the table, but I am. And I say that because generally I am I stick out in the room, right? So it's more a thing of it's not enough of us. And so I got to show that they made the right decision. I was not hired for this or that, for affirmative action, or because you needed something to stick out in the room. So no, you call people. I'm a very resourceful person. If there's something I don't understand or something I need to know, I'm more the person where I'm going to start picking up the phone. I'm going to start calling. hey, you got 5 minutes after work to show me how to do this. I did it with you when I got one of my roles. I don't do this. Can you show me? And so I feel like I'm going to reach out and start making connections to help get me the information that I need to get for me to do it. So it's never a doubt for me of if I can do the role, because again, my mindset is you got to conquer this, because you're the soar. You stand out in the room. You got to show them, and I'm not saying that's right, but that's where my mindset is.
So Angel, what do you think is, because you have Casey who, again, if we think about the things that she said, right? We think those things before day one, right? Before we get in the room. Mm-hmm. What do you think is the root cause, or some of the root causes rather, because I don't think it's a single root cause of us, hearing those voices in our head, or, people feeling like they're inadequate, again, despite, right, their achievements and success. What do you think are some of the root causes?
I think that, to your point, there's several. One in particular I think about is like childhood, how we grew up, how our parents were in our lives or not in our lives, if they encouraged us or not, what we saw from them. I think all of those things play a role in how we develop and who we become. And I know we're going to talk about, I don't want to jump ahead, I know we're going to talk about like personality types, but when I think...
Go ahead.
Oh,
yeah, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
So when I think about, how I grew up and my personality type, and so I'll just say I'm a perfectionist, or I'm a recovering perfectionist. And I say this in a way, so I've always believed nothing is ever perfect. You can't be perfect. I know this in my mind, but my response doesn't always equate to that. So I know that I can't be perfect, but I'm trying to be perfect, but not consciously, if that makes any sense. So
listen, it makes perfect sense to me, right?
So because of that, I definitely, and that perfectionist came from not having both my parents in the household. So wanting to show, like, I grew up with my mother, so wanting to show her that I can do whatever she needed me to do and be good at it flawlessly. So that was something for me. I also looked up like different personality types that typically go through imposter syndrome, and I just want to share what I found.
Yes.
And how this directly relates to me.
So
high achievers or overachievers, I've often been told that is me. And I think you and I had this conversation before, Yolanda.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna put my little church finger up.
Yep.
Every time you say something that I can relate to.
So this next one I'm going to say, which I didn't even realize this was me until maybe like within the last 6 to 8 months. People pleaser. I would have never thought that I was a people pleaser until I sat down with myself one day and I was like, you really don't want to do that, but you just said you're going to do it. And that's when I started to identify, like, and if people know me, they know that I'm pretty firm. Some people may even say I'm stoic. So that wouldn't even be a personality trait of someone who's like that.
So this is I'm
gonna raise my pen. So y'all,
this is a half a finger, because
I think we all are people pleasers, though.
So I think what helped me with that one is I read a book years ago called Boundaries, When to Say Yes, When to Say No, and I forget the whole title, by Henry Cloud and John Townsend, that delivered me from people pleasing. So, but I get it though. So it's a half a finger.
The next one, which is so me, but a lot of people don't see this to be me, especially in corporate America, is introverts. I am a natural introvert. And they say that introverts experience imposter syndrome. They say,
wow.
Yeah. And is
it double-sided introverts? Because I'm an extrovert, but I'm an introvert, meaning like when I get to know you, Yolanda, know I'm wide open. But if I don't know you, I'm kind of like quiet and I ain't gonna say too much. So I wonder, is that double-sided?
I call myself a extroverted introvert because I'm an introvert naturally, but I know how to be extroverted in certain.
Oh, okay.
Same. I've been
I'm flipped.
forced
I'm an
to.
extrovert naturally and introvert.
Yeah, I've been forced just because of environments of being in leadership, right? You can't just sit in the corner of a room and talk to one person when people are looking to you. So I've had to learn to be on, if you will.
Yeah.
But it's exhausting, right? So anyway, go ahead.
Yes. Highly empathetic or sensitive individuals. Now, I don't think I am empathetic,
I
but
am
I'm not
empathetic.
sensitive.
Neither am I.
Yeah. So
Y'all not empathetic?
We are
we
empathetic.
are
We're
empathetic.
Oh,
just
you're
not
not
sensitive.
sensitive.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is that a bird over there? Oh, I'm a little sensitive. I'm a little
A
sensitive.
little bit. I do think as I mature, I become a little bit more sensitive, but you know,
Well,
I wouldn't say that I'm sensitive.
Yeah,
um, I will say perimenopause has helped me be a bit more sensitive than I normally would be, and have a little more emotion than in the past. But that is not who I am naturally. I'm not a really sensitive
and I hate to get
nor
people stirred
emotional
up. Y'all
person.
both Northerners though, right? Both of y'all?
We are.
Yeah. Y'all are not
Yeah.
sensitive. Yeah.
Well, I'm Midwest.
I'm not sensitive. People just Southerners are true sensitive people. So I'm gonna go ahead and just knock y'all out.
Yeah, I'm a northerner. Yes, I'm not.
And I can
Yes.
speak on this audience because my mama is from Philly. And
Yes, yes.
The expert personality is someone who thinks they know everything. Now, I am recovered from that. I am not that anymore. I used to be probably about 10 years ago. I've been recovering from that for a long time. But that was something I did used to think you couldn't tell me nothing. But I
Oh,
that
no, that one wasn't me.
it was definitely me at some point. And
Well,
then
at least I don't think so. Maybe if you ask some folk from my past, they might might think, do you know, you think your brand is one thing, right? But then you have to, like, do a survey of the people around you. But I don't think. I don't know.
and
That's
then
up
the
for debate.
soloist. The soloist is someone who feels like they must accomplish everything on their own. And
wow.
I definitely was there at one point. I liked working independently versus in a team environment. So, and I felt like I could accomplish those things as well. It took me having a nonprofit and trying to do it on my own and understanding that I couldn't for me to grow out of that. So that was definitely something that was me.
So
Wow.
interesting. I'm not necessarily I'm not a soloist, but because I dealt with perfectionism and had control issues, then I tended in the past to feel like I just may as well do it myself, right? Because nobody else is going to do it like I want it to be done, and so that kind of made me a soloist in that way, right? So I guess, yeah, maybe I was.
Total group.
She talking through it.
I'm all about group activity.
Y'all, this is a live therapy session. We're supposed to be.
You finding out some things you learned about yourself.
Listen, I'm looking at myself in the mirror, right? Literally on the screen, and as I talk through it, yeah, I guess I was. So okay, now we have been talking about what some of the root causes are, and what I'm sure people, particularly those who deal with it, want to know, like, what things you have done to combat imposter syndrome, right? When those voices come in your head, how do you get around it? How do you get through it? What do you say to yourself?
So for the last few years, I have probably the last 5 to 7 years, I've been selecting the word of the year to kind of help me get through the year. And that just helps me in general with everything. And maybe about 4 years ago, when I really started to understand what imposter syndrome was, my word of the year was intentional. And a part of that intentionality was being intentional about what I say to myself. And a lot of times it is so much easier for us to speak negatively than it is for us to speak positively, whether it be about ourselves or anything. Like, so I started to recognize that negative self-talk. And once I started to recognize that, I was able to kind of reverse that and have positive self-talk and really question myself, and ask myself, why am I thinking like this? Really doing a root cause analysis to try to understand and get to the bottom of these thoughts. And it has helped me tremendously in a lot of different areas, but very specifically has helped me in corporate America when I am having these negative thoughts or thinking that I can't do something. I'm like, well, you're here for a reason. Somebody saw something in you that maybe you didn't see in yourself. Like now you need to learn to see it in yourself so that you can complete this task, so I think the positive self-talk is a very powerful tool. And I don't think a lot of people realize, again, a lot of people don't even realize that they're speaking negatively to themselves. I did. I was, in hindsight, I was a pessimist and would have never thought it at the time. But to switch that over and become more optimistic and just having those conversations with myself, again, identifying it immediately and having those conversations with myself has been really helpful. And then also making sure I have people in my corner who are able to see through it as well. I mean,
that's right.
I've called you and had a conversation with you before, and there was some imposter syndrome in that conversation, So I think surrounding yourself with the right people to help you to be able to identify that, because again, because we are so naturally hard on ourselves, we may not even understand it or see it immediately. So sometimes having somebody to bounce something off of to give you that perspective is helpful also.
Yep. And one of the things that I do, and so, there was a time where those thoughts would paralyze me almost, right? To some degree, particularly if you are dealing with perfectionism, right? And, with perfectionism, it, it can paralyze you because you feel like you almost can't get started because you feel like it has to be perfect the first time, right? And that feeds directly into imposter syndrome because we don't, those who deal with it sometimes have a hard time um, remembering that if it's a new role, if it's a new situation, if it's a promotion, that everybody, and I mean every single body that takes on one of those new things, while you might not be starting from scratch because you have some transferable skills, but everybody is in a state of learning, right? And it's okay. And truth be told, most managers expect that it's going to take you a little while to get up to speed. And so now it doesn't paralyze me. And I would love to be able to say that those voices just completely go away. I don't know if they ever will. And it's okay if it doesn't. But I think the quicker you learn how to combat them, the easier it becomes, right? Because it becomes a thought and then you combat it almost right away, right? And so for me, I began reminding myself of the trail of wins that I've had behind me. And for those of you who are maybe early in your career, it can be just one win, right? And one of the wins is that, shoot, you got your degree, or maybe you didn't get your degree, right? But you had enough skill or experience to get the role, or there is something in your life that you did and you were successful at it. Even if it's just the one win, you can rest on that, right? I had there's a process, an intake process, right? I don't have to go into detail about that, but when I was hired for the role that I'm in, one of the pieces was standing up an intake process, right? And this is something that I had done twice before. Now, day one, I started my role, and my manager goes, yeah, Wednesday we have a call. I set up a call with the team so you can start working on setting up the intake process. And that's a Monday and the meeting is Wednesday. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Right. And so those thoughts start coming, but immediately I was like, wait a minute, Yolanda, you've done this before. You were successful. You don't have to know it all in this space. You don't know anything about this space. So when you get in that meeting, what you're going to do is just start asking some questions because you've got to learn. That's how you do it, right? One foot in front of the other. I was talking to one of my mentees earlier this week or the end of last week, I forget. She's somebody who I asked to do something for me, asked to lead something. And she started kind of feeling like she wasn't adequate, right? And so what I told her to do was just what I said, right? Thinking about those trail of wins, but not just thinking about it. I had her right then while we were on the conference call, start writing those things down, literally writing them down, right? So she could see them so that when she's having those thoughts, she literally has something that she can remind herself of in the moment. And so, I just wanted to share that. And then let me add something because I mentioned, about we're all learning. Do either one of you think that you've heard the term faking it till you make it, right? Do you think that that's related to imposter syndrome, or how is it related, if it's related at all?
I just want to say one thing before we go into this specific topic, because I think for people that are watching, I think it's important for us to understand there is a difference between taking on a project or an assignment and maybe being overwhelmed or feeling like, this is a little harder than I expected. It's not saying that you have imposter syndrome and you feel inadequate, that you can't do the role, but sometimes you're given things that may seem a little harder, far stretched in, and it may take you pulling additional resources to bring it in. So even with those, you got to find some sort of balance. Now, on the flip side, then you're going to have folks who do feel like, yes, I accepted this role. I was excited. Now I'm in the role and I'm having some doubts that maybe can I really get this job done? And so, I think it's important to make sure we separate that line, because, I don't want people to say, oh, I have imposter syndrome because I got this project and I can't do it, versus, you know what, I'm having a feeling of inadequacy. I don't know if I'm cut out for this. Maybe I overstepped my boundary when I applied for this job or took on this particular position. So just make sure that you kind of know that line between, that versus having the imposter syndrome. And then another thing for me personally, my suggestion would be also don't stamp yourself as having, you can say, okay, I suffer from a bit of imposter syndrome, but don't necessarily stamp yourself, because you don't want to carry that. It's like a recovering alcoholic. You don't want to say, well, I'm an alcoholic all the time. And that's not what you are anymore. You have recovered from it. So like Angel has recovered from, it may still creep in every now and again, but we're not going to say Angel and Yolanda they suffer from imposter syndrome. It creeps in. You all have your mechanisms to combat it. And then you go about your day and you're still bosses and whatever it is you do. So I just want to make some sense.
Yeah. And there's something you said, right, which I just want to touch on real quick before we go back to you, Angel. You said, and I loved it, a feeling that you have, because it is just that. And feelings are not facts.
And we tend to react to our feelings instead of, we tend to do things that we know we wouldn't necessarily do because somebody could be like, somebody said something to me and I wanted to this, but I said, fall back. That's not who you really are. You're just heated and you're upset. So just don't let your feelings get the best of you and make you. So that is a good point. You are feeling it. So don't let it cause you to overreact. I quit. I can't do this.
and wait a minute. Look, y'all know I'm looking in the sun is setting here where I am, and I did not prepare properly and close my curtains. So
it's okay.
Excuse. I know I just figured somebody's gonna be like, what is that? So that's what it is. And it's all good. And because I'm not a perfectionist anymore, we don't have to stop this recording and start over because the sun is setting. So anyway, so Angel, let's get back to this fake it till you make it, like, thing, and if it's related or how it's related.
Absolutely. So I don't say fake it till you make it. I say faith it. So FAITH it till you make it. But so when I experience imposter syndrome, my manager doesn't know I'm going through it. I'm gonna fake it or faith it until I make it. So I'm thinking about a recent project that I was working on, and when I was first tasked with it, prior to me being tasked with it, I wanted to do it. I was like, okay, give it to me. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna kill it. I'm gonna crush it. Got it, and I was like, I don't know. I think I didn't bit off too much that I can chew. Had all these thoughts in my head. I'm like, and a part of my role is flawless execution. That's something that we talk about all the time. So to hear that replaying in my mind and knowing that I have to do this big project that is ultimately going to go to the CEO of the organization in which I work for, it, like, all of these thoughts start creeping in, like, okay, I don't know if you can do this. This is a lot. The CEO is going to see this. Yes, he may not know that I am the person that did it, but I know I'm the person that did it. So I'm having all these thoughts or conversations with myself, but my manager has no idea that these are the thoughts that I'm having. So in her eyes, I'm doing it. But in my mind, I'm like, I'm gonna faith it until I make it. So I absolutely believe that the two are related, for sure.
Yeah, but I like the faith it, because that faking it. Listen, if it's not there, it is just not there, right? Like, if it's not there, it's not there. But again, it goes into, right, you say faith it till you make it. I say you're learning, right? You're growing, you're being stretched. And that's what is happening with all of us. And know that it's okay, right? It's okay. And even if depending on your manager, right? Depending on your manager, you might even be able to say, I'm a little nervous, right? You don't have to go into all the details. I'm a little nervous about this, but I got it, right? I got it. So as we are getting ready to,
and I'm sorry, to that point,
that's okay.
I wanted to say this is the last thing. Another thing that helps me to get through the imposter syndrome is I truly, in my heart to heart, believe that I could do anything I want to do. So even when I get in that mode of like thinking like that, I get back to like, Angel, you can do anything you want to do. Like, why are you going through these things? Like, you're putting yourself when you know that you can do it. So, and I believe that about anybody. I think that anything that you want to do, let me be
That's right. We had this whole conversation. I mean, well, okay. I think it's still debatable, because I want to be able to sing, like, and have a beautiful
you can get vocals,
beautiful voice. I want to be able to draw a stick man that actually looks like a stick man, and not
you can do that.
Weird.
You may not have been gifted. That may not be your talent, but you can do, like Angel said, anything. You can go get a book and take the time to take the practice and learn it. But you may not be gifted or talented to have natural.
Here's what I know. I have the ability to learn. Right? I do have the ability to learn. I can't do everything, but if it's something that I really want to do, and I put my mind to it, I probably can do it. Right? I use probably because I still feel like there's something out there that is just that's out of my realm. It is. I mean, that's just, just the reality.
I mean, if it's something you wanted to learn, I'm going to move it to the left and say, if it's something you really wanted to learn, like you said, you would like to sing. You're not going to sound like Whitney or Mariah, right? But you're going to be.
But I want to. Well, but no, I want to.
We want you to sound like Yolanda. We don't want you to sound like Whitney or Mariah. We've already heard
right.
We want a new version of the song. But you can get vocal lessons to learn how to be in tune. you're not going to sound like Whitney, and I don't speak negatively, but you're not. But you're going to carry a tune, which is what singing is, carrying.
So let's say this. I think there is a balance, right, between us wanting to do something and managing our expectations for some things, right? But it doesn't mean that we can't try. It doesn't mean that we can't learn, and we can. We might not reach the level of success in that area as a Whitney or a Mariah, right?
You can do it.
But for me, if I went to a vocal coach and learned to stay in tune, that would be success for me, right? And so kind of redefining success as well, and not comparing yourself to someone else.
Or wanting to be someone else, because you don't know what they have to go through or what shoes they're walking in during their run. So, I mean, and I think that's an important takeaway for a lot of people who may experience imposter syndrome. And you may be like, well, such and such doesn't do that, or I want to be like such and such who seemingly knocks it out the park. You don't know if such and such is crying in the bathroom during y'all work breaks. You don't know if such and such is on the phone with a family member and they're telling them you can't do it. And so, I mean, you got to combat it the way that works for you. And that's going to make you feel comfortable enough to say, when you sit down, I got it. I may have a little doubt, but I got this. Because you got that role for a reason. And I mean, we both. So.
And we're each wonderful and amazing in our own right. We each have something unique and special that we bring to the table, whether it be at work, whether it be in our friendships, whether it be whatever it is, we have something special and unique. And so, don't compare yourself to someone else. Now, I think it's okay if you see someone that you admire and there might be some characteristics about them. There was a lady years ago who was a director, and I remember seeing her on stage. And when she spoke, she was just so poised, and she talked, very slowly and very intentional. And I really loved it. Now, I will never speak like that, and I don't have to, but I admired that because I talked way too fast, right? So fast that people couldn't necessarily understand me. And so I started working on just slowing down for clarity and being intentional, right? So you can admire something in someone and want to adopt, maybe some of the best parts of that, but you still don't have to try to be them or compare yourself to them. So any final thoughts from either one of you who, as we get ready to close this podcast?
One thing I'd like to say as we close, imposter syndrome isn't a reflection of your actual ability. It's a distortion in how you perceive yourself. And in thinking about that and knowing who I am, and not to get too biblical, but knowing that I am fearfully and wonderfully made, we all are. Even if you just have that thought alone, when you start to experience imposter syndrome, and to case point, not claiming it, but knowing that it's something that is coming up, just have that thought alone. And that thought and that covering should transition your thoughts and change your mindset.
Case?
I'm just going to say hallelujah. Yeah, it was good, Sister Angel. I wish I had a tambourine because I'd slap it right now. No, I'm just going to say, for me, my biggest takeaway, again, is just learning. You got to learn. I'm speaking from the role that I have and where I'm training adults every day. And I find more people afraid to speak up. And my thing is, sometimes if you don't know, you got to speak up. You got to tap into your resources. And that's for the people who experience imposter syndrome because they're like, I just don't know this. So maybe I'm not adequate to do it. If you don't know it, tap your resources. That's what organizations like this, GALS is about, tapping into one another to see, hey, I need help with this. Can you give me some tips? So tap your resources. I'm huge on that. And that's all I got. But yes, hallelujah. I don't have a tambourine. Just hit my phone.
All right.
Hallelujah.
Now we promised you at the beginning that we were gonna let we were gonna talk about Angel's podcast. I want to give her an opportunity to talk about her podcast, and I've been listening to her podcast the last couple weeks, on my drive to work and coming home, and it has blessed me. I've sent it to some people, but I'm gonna let you talk about your podcast.
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you for allowing me to be here with you all today. This was a wonderful conversation, a needed one, and I really think that it's going to impact someone. So, a lot of someone. So, kudos to both you, boss guys.
Yes.
But my podcast, so I'm the co-host of a podcast called The Grieving Journey. It can be found on all podcasting platforms. And just a little bit about it, or a little bit about my journey. I lost both my parents and my grandmother within 3 years of each other. And those are the three people who have helped me to be the woman that I am today. So I wanted to create a platform to help. And the way that I grieved, first of all, let me just say, losing my mother was the hardest thing that I've ever experienced. And I think I will ever experience in my entire life. Like, that was my best friend. She was young. So that was a really, really tough thing, but I immediately sought therapy. I continued to go to church. It was hard because she was so locked into the church. So every time I went, and people are showing their compassion for me, it just instantly hit me. So it was definitely a challenge, but I think that the way that I handled my grief was a lot different. I tapped into things that I hadn't done, like travel. Travel became a really big thing once I started going through that, because I'm like, life is short, So let me live my life for the time that I'm here on this earth. And I started doing things to honor my mother, but also honor me and my time on this earth. So that is why the Grieving Journey podcast was created, to not only talk about grieving the loss of a person, but grieving the loss of. So grief is not just losing a person, but it's losing something. So the podcast shares story, not only my story and my co-host story, but it also shares stories of others who have gone through grief and how they've been able to manage it and get through it. So the goal is to help other people to get through their journey as well.
I think the thing that was is most powerful for me, because I know this, right? That when you are experiencing grief, especially like if you've lost someone close to you or whatever, you feel like you're alone and you're the only one going through it and nobody else can understand. But in listening to some of the stories, right, and some were very, very tragic. But listening to the stories and listening to how they grieved or didn't grieve, right, initially, the things that they did, I saw different people that I knew, right, in my head, and I sent it to them so that they could have somebody else that they could hear that and know that they weren't alone and could understand what they were going through and the feelings they were going through. So I encourage you all to listen to the podcast, or if you know someone who is grieving, who's lost someone or something, right? And that something could be a job. It could be some hopes and dreams that you had, right? It could be a limb. It could be any number of things that you lost. This is a really, really great podcast, and it has a spiritual undertone. Well, I don't know if it's undertone or overtone, but it's really, really wonderful. So I encourage you. Again, it is called
The Grieving Journey podcast.
The Grieving Journey. So with that, ladies, this has been a great time to talk some tea about imposter syndrome. And trust and believe, Angel, you will be back. You will be back. And yet again, right, we don't know what our next topic is going to be. That's okay. You'll find out soon enough. But join us again for Boss Gals Talking Tea. You all have a good one. Thanks.